Attending, I think there's first hustings of about 4 that the NHAT have put on this week. Being the last person out of the education system as a student in this general election overall, not just as a candidate in Oncombe but at the 65, I have a first-hand experience as a student of what, all those 9 years ago, of what the education system has been like within the last single digits of years. There's been very much in that time since a breakdown in communication between teachers and the department, and that's been there for quite some time. On a weekly basis, I socialise with a number of teachers, both at primary and secondary level, and hear some horrendous stories, horrific stories, retention, lack of transparency from the department, breakdown in relationships, basically an absolute mess in our education system, which is no good for our kids, our workforce, or any other kind. And that's something we need to build on. I'm glad that from what I've heard from some staff, that morale is starting to come back after the slow start of restructuring since the last CEO departed, and we have a new one in place who seems to be more proactive from what I've been hearing. So that's a good foundation to start on, but more work needs to go on. We need to follow what has been said in the Demon's report, but work closely with our staff to see where we need to go forward in education for the future, for our kids, for adults, because education is something that happens every living day that we're alive. We're always learning. A human never should stop learning. I do feel as though the department run a very bad system of make policy, enforce policy, and validate policy. 19 years ago was the last time the department was externally verified. I was still in primary school down the road in 2002 when Ofsted came. The department got slaughtered, but the schools didn't. I think that says volumes that it's took 19 years for a report to come out to say that's what was going on. Why was nothing done in nearly 2 decades? Something needs to be done, and it needs to be addressed in this next administration. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Peter? Thank you very much. From my point of view, I'm probably at the other end of the scale so far as James is concerned. It must be more years than I care to think about since I last went to school, although I did do it in an unusual way. But at the time, of course, I was living in the, I suppose, the wonderful situation they had in the UK, where everything was paid for by the state. I never had to get into debt. I was always supported on everything that I did, and we must here on the Isle of Man try and bring that back. We must have, I'll start at the beginning because we're at primary school, we must have free education, free school. Preschool education is vital, and of course it didn't exist in my time, but it exists now and it should be taken full advantage of. We should really start at 2 years old, not 3 years old, and it really needs to be every day of the week, because that will then equip the children that then move on to primary school to make them much better students within the primary school system. That means that the foundation staff, early years foundation stage requirements should be applied here all the way through, and that there should be, we should try and attain qualified teacher status for all those teachers within the foundation stage. That will bring everybody on and give them a head start when they get into secondary school, from a social and from an ability to be able to look after themselves properly rather than that. And particularly with regard to areas in the Isle of Man where English is a second language, which is very difficult for teachers to cope with in those early days. So it needs to be, it will all be dealt with in the preschool education. And I think that all things must be taught there that the children can grasp, including arts and music and anything that will enable them to flourish as they move on through the system. They need to have that foundation, and with that foundation they will then prosper. And I think that's all I will say at this moment in time. I've got other things to say at the end, but I'm happy to otherwise deal with questions. Thanks, Peter. Rob,
yeah, I'm going to stand because of the chair of killing me tonight. Thank you so much to everyone for coming this evening, and thank you as well to the National Association of Head Teachers for organising this evening's event. Excluding COVID-19 and Douglas Promenade for a moment, I think the island's education system has taken more column inches of media headline over the last 5 years than most other topics. There's been an ongoing pay dispute, a review of the management and government arrangements around the Board of Education, around the Department of Education, which highlighted the deterioration of the relationship between the department and the schools, along with a clear lack of trust that needs to be resolved. We've also seen changes in the Education Minister and the Chief Executive Officer, along with an education bill that doesn't appear to be fit for purpose. In respect of COVID-19, the world of education has had to adapt to many challenges that no one could have predicted, which included a huge shift to online working models, and especially around assessments. It really has been a period of significant challenge and change for the island's education system, and for many parents and for teachers. However, as Island schools open for a new term, as we welcome new teachers and new students, and with a new House of Keys about to be elected, we really do have an opportunity to pause, reflect, and look again at our education system to help improve the relationship, communication, consultation, and negotiation between the schools and the department. We also need to look at the future role of government governing boards, inspections, accountability, and the significant challenge around recruitment to attract and to keep the right people within the education profession. However, at the heart of all of this is our own overriding obligation to ensure that every child and young person is given the same opportunity to complete a full education and to help them to achieve ambitions in life and to make a great contribution to our society and in our community. Education is the foundation for opening future doors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you to the National Association of Head Teachers for the opportunity to meet members tonight. I'm Julie Edge, and I'm seeking re-election on the 23rd of September to once again be your voice in Tynwald and the House of Keys on things that matter to you, and particularly this evening with regard to education. I was driven to stand in 2016 elections due to the failures I had seen in my career, working at Nobles Hospital, the MEA, and prior to being elected in 2016, 20 years experience in education, sitting on the leadership team at Balcombe High School. My position was bursar, primarily looking after everything but teaching, playing a pivotal role in the development of school facilities and supporting the head teacher and staff to ensure that they had what they needed to deliver a first-class education system to our students. This experience gave me an holistic view of the challenges our teachers and students face. Since being elected to proudly serve on ONC, I have been fully committed to scrutinising and challenging the decisions of government, holding them to account, and striving for greater transparency and accountability. Education has been a prime area of that scrutiny from the outset. I have asked 115 questions regarding education, including student welfare, funding, grants, free school meals, infrastructure, catchment areas, capacity, budgets, staffing, pay dispute, and terms and conditions, all to ensure we have an education system that is fit for purpose. At Balcombe, I was part of a school community that grew and progressed with the autonomy of devolved financial management, allowing individual schools flexibility, curriculum and learning options for all students. policies and systems that worked, with parents being a prime part of that, so they had a clear understanding of learning plans and expected outcomes. Our government must always make decisions and create policies which are fair and which will work for the benefit of all, not the few. Particularly in education, we need to ensure our system is all-inclusive and non-discriminatory. Since being elected, education, many head teachers, teaching and support staff, parents have continued to contact me about various things, and I've been pivotal in challenging decisions and policy change. I was instrumental in stopping the Not Fit for Purpose education bill, stopping it progressing. I advocate to develop financial management in secondary schools, which resulted in the formation of an education contingency fund to help support schools to carry their budgets over from one year to the next. I look forward to listening to your questions and any concerns you may have. Thank you.
Finally, Michael.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Michael Leather. I am totally deaf, but I can communicate with a couple of England. So if you cannot hear me, please speak, just put your hand up and I'll talk louder. I became deaf from an operation in Noble's Hospital with an operation on my knee, and the cause of it, the deafness, was nitrous oxide. I went into further education and got an HNC. The attitude to the people at the time at the college was not very disappointing. I was given a laptop, which they had for £400 worth, which in true valuation was worth about £40. Because of my age and because of my handicap, people there didn't really have much time for me. The amount of books and knowledge that was there was very limited, and I tend to think now that I'm really worried about the students who are going there, if they're getting the same treatment, either from lack of funds or just from people who are disappointed. I went from that and took a Bachelor of Science degree with honours. Again, we were struggling. The class had one book, and it's only from Steve Carron, who actually took an interest to help me, that I managed to get through the qualification. From that, I went over to Liverpool John Moores to take a Master of Science degree, which I passed without any problem, because the teachers there were second to none. They took interest in you, and the amount of books and other data that was on hand was just absolutely flowing, and it was there 24/7. I have in my manifesto, I think if you've looked, my concern for some of these children, where perhaps at school they're doing computer science or whatever, and at home they do not have any facility. And also the other thing which they can have is the noise in the house impedes their chance of being able to study. That is why I'm suggesting that perhaps somewhere, such as the Hub, could produce 3 nights a week, perhaps from 6 till 9.